In the shadow of the standing stone, I feel the memory of the earth. Voices rising from the ancient dark, calling fire into rebirth. The old ones speak through breaking light, through wind that carves the sacred lore. They lift the past into the present, to guide the path we walk once more. Bringing the past to the present, for a future fast in flame, where wisdom flows like rivers old, and the stones recall our name.
Hello and welcome everyone to another episode here at the Institute for Natural Philosophy Broadcasting. My name is Ricardo Calvario, and with me I have my friend and colleague Jason, the shaman half of this project. Today we are absolutely thrilled to welcome a powerhouse of curiosity and cosmic questioning to the show. Nikkiana is the brilliant mind and voice behind Nikkiana Jones podcast, where she fiercely challenged the everyday paradigm with deep dives into megaliths, consciousness, high strangeness, ancient mysteries, UFOs, inner Earth series, and everything in between that makes you go. Whether it's holographic universes, sacred geometry, or the echoes of lost civilizations, her work here is a treasure trove of long-form interviews with the most fascinating minds out there, sparking the curiosity for anyone hungry for answers beyond the mainstream. You can find all her links in the description below the video. Nikki, it's an honor to have you here at The Shaman and the Philosopher.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I've actually Ricardo and I have interviewed on my channel like 4 or 5 times. I don't know, like a lot. You're one of my most recurring guests actually throughout the years. So yeah, we've definitely dove into a lot of, esoteric subjects, shall we say? But yeah.
Well, that certainly helps to put me at ease because my introduction for the audience, I'm not terribly familiar with Nikkiana's large body of work. I became familiar enough with her because of the community we're in. And look, when I found that she found one of my Rumble videos and said something on it, which I just noticed the other day, is the only reason I haven't replied, or she was liking my X stuff. Look, I was like, oh shit, look, I'm getting, proper attention. And so I was slightly, nervous, if you can't tell, about the conversation. So thank you for putting me at ease, and I'm really excited, if you can't tell, about having this conversation for no other reason. And the topics that we're all involved in, right? At least for me, when I was a young man, despite the world we're now waking up in, where we see that there's a lot of lies everywhere in society, right? The first place you could sort of start to get introduced to that notion was on these topics about our history, right? Whether it was whatever, Ancient Aliens or History Channel late at night, these topics introduced us all to something that became really key to society, I think, later on, and I was personally thankful to have, and I still have. And before I step too much further into talking about my own passion, I think I'll welcome you here and then open you up to just telling us about your passion. What it is that had you dive off into having me slightly nervous about having your attention and talking to you here tonight.
Well, you don't have to be nervous with me because I will tell you, I am, okay, so I have a master's in art history and I was a geology minor. I was very academic, super into science and also into history my whole life. I've been on archaeological digs. I've done the whole traditional path, and then it was I don't know. I was 33, 34, and I was in Peru. I'm 43 by the way now, so I was I guess this would have been 2014. So I guess that was maybe anyway. it was like 2014, and I go to Sacsayhuaman. I went to Peru on a yoga trip, right? And I, we were doing like, like downward dog at like Machu Picchu or whatever. And then when I got to one of the bonus days was like, oh, you guys can go shopping or do whatever you want. It's a free day. I went to, somebody was like, oh, do you want to go to Sacsayhuaman? And I was like, the strip club? I'm not going to go to Sexy Woman. Like, what? I was like, what are you talking about? Like, anyway, so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go to Sacsayhuaman, right? So I get there. I've never heard this word ever in the history of my universe. And nobody's ever talked about it ever. And this is even a person who's literally in history. And I had heard of Machu Picchu, but that's it, right? That's about as far as it went. And then I get there, and it's just me and these other two girls that were in our thing. And this is before it was an amusement park. Like, there was no gate to get in. It was free to get in. And there was not a soul at the entire place, and it was raining. And I get up to the rocks, and I start touching them, and I start having like a freak out. Like, I actually start crying, and I start having a panic attack. And I'm going like, everything's a fucking lie. Incas did not build this with llamas. Like, what is... Can I say the F word? I'm sorry, but like, that's what I was thinking. I was just like, what the fuck, man? Like, seriously, how come I'm in my 30s and I just now heard about this place on a yoga trip? Like, I mean, it... And then that started my... Yeah, that started my dive into what else are they not talking about? Like, what are they not really talking about? And... as I've gone along this process, I've been to Peru, I've been to Egypt, I just got back from Japan megalithic tour, I've done Turkey, I've done your Stonehenge, I've been all over Mexico, I've done like Guatemala, the basics. I've done a lot of travel, like a lot of travel, and I just continue to find commonalities that shouldn't be there that are there. And when you see them in person in real life, then it just makes you madder, basically. But then at this point, I don't even know if it's maliceness by all these people, or if it's just really we are in some sort of crazy matrix and we're dealing with weird. I'm like way woo too. Okay, so like at this point I started out like, oh look, this rock should not be in this formation, and this is really and now I'm like, listen, we're dealing with multidimensional things. We're dealing with time travel. We're dealing with like Lord of the Rings beings.
We're those fuckers that survived the flood. Were they flying and shit?
Yeah, but seriously, the thing is like you can't take anything off the table anymore because, to try to be like stiff, like let's just beat them at their own game and just be like, they don't give a shit. Like these people are so brainwashed, it's not even funny. Like you have to make the binary distinction. Like, do you believe everything you're told or not? And if you fall into the not, then you have to be open-minded because we're dealing with some weird stuff here.
Yeah, brainwashed is, look, I don't know if that has a negative connotation or not. I use narrative blindness. We're talking about the same thing. I think, we all, anybody that adheres to the narrative that doesn't encompass what you just described, and thank you for the story about Peru. Peru, I know, is critical. Somehow I know this. I've never been. I did a little traveling when I was young, right? I went to Rome and Greece and saw the old, buildings and shit there, and of course Stonehenge and England and all that. But then as I got older, life, needed to pin me here for obvious reasons at this point. There was, shit to be found here. But Peru strikes me as being just very important to this whole lost civilization thing, and perhaps even, it definitely has hints, I'm sure, of what was before the devastation, more so than a lot of places. And personally for me, Nikki, when I'm up in North Alabama and I've seen all this footage from Peru, right, and I start hopping around these boulders down the bottom of this canyon, and I'm jumping on this shit going, this is Sacsayhuaman wall. Somebody knocked over the fucking Sacsayhuaman wall is what happened here. This wasn't boulders, and so I see commonalities there. And not to hijack where you were going, but I just really wanted to highlight and thank you for your personal experience, right? That I could, when you were describing touching that wall in your experience, you can just see that that experience of somebody absolutely having all of the lies and all of the things viscerally and real and all the things we all subconsciously already know. So you already had it within you, right? But you stand there and your hands are on it, and then it's just clear to you instantly. It was lies, right? When I went to that triangular mound, of rubble in the Cahaba, that I think this is going to be native, right? It's what this shit'll be. And I get there and it's all fucking big pieces of rock, right? And you get up there and there's drill holes in it. I breathed in and I fell down in the middle, I was like, well, I have no more questions, right? It's such a beautiful moment that this brainwashed or this narrative blindness just dissolves, and it's an emotional release because the lies and all the things we've let ourselves walk with just dissolve. Thank you for sharing.
And I think different people come to, like, I guess you would say different people in our community, whatever this community necessarily is or isn't, they come to it in different ways. Like, there's a lot of people who they just, like, they look at enough pictures, they do enough research, they see enough comparisons, and then they go, huh, all right, that doesn't add up, and then they're fine with that. Or, I don't know, it's just weird. Like, I had to get smacked over the head in, like, a very visceral way. But, so, like, what now I am really passionate about is really the hallmarks. Like, and Ricardo's written a paper about that, but defining what that is. And I'm in the middle of writing a book where I'm kind of detailing that out and, like, basically coming up with a big database showing what all these hallmarks are and where they are. And
these are the hallmarks of the lost civilization?
Yes, like, for example, you have the sizes stones that are too big to move. You have, like, polygonal. Some people say polygonal, but polygonal is how I say it. Whatever. Okay.
Polygonal? No, that's illegal and everywhere but Utah. I don't know.
I think that's how Ricardo says it. He says polygonal. But we know what we're talking about, right? The Tetris weird puzzle pieces where no two blocks are the same, and they fit together like seamless, mortarless. You have pinch holes, drill holes, all kinds of weird holes that don't make sense. You have the material itself, meaning limestone or granite. A lot of the times you have, or some sort of, conglomerate. And then you have nubs. I love the nubs. Mm-hmm. Like, nubs are like a what? Mm-hmm. And then there's just, like, incised motifs. There's, like, doorways that don't go anywhere. There's a lot of just really bizarre, weird commonalities that are everywhere. And
what got you going on this project, the hallmarks?
I think it was
my mind's kind of blown. This is so, I'm just impressed by this. So I want, if you don't mind.
Well, for me, it's like, and by the way, I will say, because, like, I I live in New Mexico now, but I was living in Arkansas for a while, and I've done a lot of American. I'm a flight attendant in my real world where I get paid, and I go all over the U.S. and I definitely think that I actually sort of might be one of those people who thinks that, first of all, I think Atlantis is just a word for a previous civilization. It's not just one island that Plato. I have problems with Plato. We'll talk about that later. But basically, I do think there was an advanced civilization before they're telling us that we were global, before they're telling us we were global. And I think that the U.S., in particular, North America, was headquarters of whatever destruction there was. And that's why, yes, you have things that look like weird walls and stuff like this, but you can't exactly say it is because it's kind of too destroyed at this point. We don't have it as clear cut as you'd have it in like Peru or Greece or whatever, Egypt or something. And for me, I think that signifies, it's not like they were like, oh, let's just leave that perfectly, lush resource land alone. No, I think it's just that something else really happened here. That, and I also think Native Americans were pretty advanced in terms of psionically, like with their psychic abilities. They didn't need to build quite the things that we're building to. But okay, it's circling amazing. Back to the hallmarks, how I got into that. It really was. Things get preserved. It is really weird how they get preserved, and it's comparison analysis, right? I think I went to Egypt in 2019, and I went to Peru in 2014. And once I had gone, there's so much commonalities, like in particularly like the Osirian and a lot of the structures in Peru, that it's just pretty hard to deny that right now in the U.S. or not in the world, okay, you could, like, it doesn't matter if a building was built in Dubai or Japan or Texas. It doesn't matter where. Like, we may have, like, stylistically, the outsides of our buildings globally will look differently, but we all use concrete, we use wood, we use screws, we use nails. Like, there's an architectural language that exists, like, globally. And I believe that that language was different than it is now, but there was one that existed back then. And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at, there's some stylistic changes to the nubs in Peru than there are in Egypt, but there's still weird ass knobs that are on the side of stone buildings that, like, if they really wanted to, they could have removed them. If they could build a pyramid, you could remove them off a pyramid. Like, so there was something more than they were just for lifting, which is what the conventional people have decided, who can't completely ignore them. That as an example, like, that's something where I think is pretty bizarre. There's other bizarre things, cart ruts are bizarre. Like,
the cart ruts those are very intriguing.
They're very interesting. I just found some in Austin, like they're in the U.S. too. And I guess we have to really figure out if there's a standardized size and depth and, like, what else is really going on. But that's a global phenomenon. That's kind of weird.
There was an article on Graham Hancock's site that he shared. I forget the gentleman's name, but it was like 4 days ago, right, on cart ruts, and he apparently had gone, whoever the gentleman was gone pretty deep into the diameters, the what could it be, and his answer was about, I guess what ours would be, is that we're going to have to stop trying to think in the way we think now. You're going to have to. This wasn't wheels, you've got to think outside of the way we're constrained to thinking because of what we know of technology.
Yeah, like, it's literally in stone, so whatever it was, it's some kind of,
the stone melted, or you know what I'm saying? You got to start getting outside the box to say how is this replicated all over the place with these exact same diameters and dimensions.
Well, this recent paper that I read about cart ruts, but from the academic perspective, they're trying to explain it because they found a site that they can tell that there was ash deposit by a volcano, and then a cart passed through the ash and left those grooves, right? What they're forgetting is there's countless places that there is no volcanic activity.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, in Austin, it's in limestone. It's not on pumice or, like, some sort of, like, rubble thing, or
And there are places where wheels cannot traverse because there's crossing paths. They all end not all, but most of them, or some of them, I'm not sure, end at the sea, and they continue into the sea because the sea levels were different. So that alone tells us how old they are. So it's not something that will be easily explained. And in terms of the nubs, to me, what always fascinated me, although I don't understand nubs at all, it's just a curiosity to me, they are too complex, is the fact that they were left intentionally. You had to carve the whole face of the rock to leave that nub, because you're not adding to the rock, you are taking from the rock. So in order to have a nub, you have to carve the rest of the stone and leave that an indentation
what if
there.
you wanted to put a artificial surface up against them and you wanted it to hang the nubs, maybe?
But most of them are on the exterior, right, Nikki? So that they are in the exterior.
Oh yeah, most of them are on the exterior.
Maybe
and
they
look,
had decorations, it's like a picture hook, but
like,
already made in. I don't know.
I'm kind of like a nub senior at this point. Like, I've been in the nub game for at least like 5-6 years. Wow. So I've heard everybody from the geopolymer people to the, like, what are their function, this or that, like, whether they're, and I don't care if their function was sockets and plugs or, like, kind of like how you have braces that have those little nodgens on them, and like, oh, they were a thing that helped surface things, or a maker's mark of a mason's thing. You have people talk about how like they could have been a light source, they could have been this, they could have been that. I mean, honestly, we can speculate all day long till the cows come home with that, but the real thing that's just staring us in the face is, okay, who cares what their function is? Ultimately, they're global. Why are they everywhere?
Right.
That's the real problem. That's the real question. It's like, even if you want to figure out what they're for, how does somebody in Peru who's not supposed to have cross-cultural like exchanges going on with people in like Turkey do the exact same thing?
Well, seafaring has now been retracted to
I think
136,000 years.
That's where they hung their stone signs. That's what I'm going with, okay? They made some big stone carving, and they wanted it to look like it stuck out of the wall, and they just situated on the map.
They're in auditoriums. They're on benches, and most amphitheaters in Greece and in Turkey will have underneath the seats.
Maybe they were perverted, but the bench, that's weird to have a nub on a bench.
There's no there, yeah, and so like a lot of people think that, or actually it's been postulated that they might have something to do with sound, like amplification of noise. There's some Egyptian people have talked about how they've claimed that the knobs, some people call them knobs instead of nubs, but they light up. Like there might be some sort of piezoelectrical thing that works where they acted as lights. Some are at the very top of columns, especially in Greece, but then when you go to like India, they're mainly found just at the base of stuff, So it's there. You can't find a uniform explanation for all of them based on their locations.
That's why they're so interesting and so undecipherable.
Yeah. Different shapes. We have triangle nubs, round nubs. You have like a D-shaped nub. You have square nubs. You have, it's very bizarre.
The gigantic ones on that quarry in China.
Oh yeah, like in Shenyang quarry, it's like there's huge nubs. They're on bedrock, like all over Peru. I found like 4 or 5.
You have to carve this from the rock, all the face of the rock, to leave those massive nubs out.
And they're perfectly shaped. They're also curated shaped. It's not just like a glob piece of rock that's all unfinished. They actually finished some sort of surface to them as well.
To tell me one thing, what is to you the most interesting thing that was solved that you were seeking, and what is the most interesting thing apart from nubs that has yet failed to be solved?
That's really interesting because, like, I don't know that I've ever, like, that anything's been solved for me. I also find pinch holes really bizarre. It looks like someone took a pincher or something and went when the rock was clay, and you can like thread almost a thing through it. And I mean, I've found those like at Palenque in Mexico. I've found those in, I found them in Derinkuru in Turkey. They're
in India. Really, I've seen them in India. I've seen them in Japan.
They're all over too. Yeah. They're just as common as pinch holes, but in different locations. They aren't nubs and pinch holes don't necessarily go. They do sometimes go in the same place, but not necessarily. And those are like really bizarre. And like, what have they figured out? Like, this the thing is like, I don't really feel like they have figured anything out, because even like, okay, a big portion of this subgroup of alt history, right, is into the they're like, oh, you're either like Dr. Shock, or you think it's like a solar blast happened, or you're like Graham Hancock, where you think it's like a bunch of Younger Dryas like comets that hit the ice shelf and melted it, whatever. End of the day, I kind of feel like they're all working to prove their narrative, their new narrative. They're like, the mainstream is wrong, but what really happened is this, and we're trying to like give all the evidence to point to our new theory. But I just don't really think that that's like how it works, and I don't really think that. So people get too married to the Younger Dryas. I think they get too
one of the
married.
reasons I go with, whenever I have to mention this because of my evidence, right? I describe what happened as a high heat, high energy event because what my eyes can see showed me took high heat, definitely took high heat, and it definitely took a fuckload of energy, right? Blasting energy or force, right? So that's it. Because outside of that, yeah, we've got mounting evidence for the comet hypothesis, and I tend to go that way just because of when I look at what I find on the ground in my humble little mind, right? I can kind of stop with an airburst. I can go, yeah, an airburst would do this. Are there other
But see,
things
for me,
that
it's
would
kind
do
of
it? Yes.
it would have to be a series of airbursts or a series of flashes or a series of all these things.
Yeah,
Because we don't have a giant meteor crater, and then they're like, oh, well, it's ice. We don't have the meteor.
Yeah, that's why, and this is my position. That's why I think that it's all of those combined. That's why we're finding evidence. One side can bring evidence and say this was happened because here's the evidence, here's the academic work. But the other side can say exactly the same. Here's the evidence. Here's the academic work done on this side too.
With such an upheaval going on in the galaxy at that time, whatever it was, if you had that comet bursting into 1,000 pieces and raining across the continent, what else are you going to have, Ricardo? Maybe a few pieces flying into the sun.
Yeah, but what broke the comet?
Things exploding.
What broke the comet in the first place? The sun. It's the sun we've seen breaking comets all the time.
Go ahead, Nikki. Yeah.
Sorry.
So for me, I go more with like, I don't really trust texts in general, right? Because they can be manipulated and perverted over time and all this and that. But I do think that I'm really into tektites. Tektites are supposedly when a meteorite hits the ground, the debris that goes up goes into the atmosphere and it falls back down and turns into like a glass. So it's basically this like glass that the strewn fields cover something like 25% of the planet. They're found in the ocean, like moldavite is a tektite, like Liberian glass is a tektite in the desert. Okay. You have all these different kinds of tektites. You also Australianite, which is like a really big one in the Indonesianite area, which is that covers like a 10% of the planet strewn field. Anyway, even the way they say that tektites are formed is dumb, especially considering half of them are found in the ocean. I think so. We basically have these weird high explosive glass particles that are called tektites that are found everywhere, and they don't have a correlation to meteorite strikes or to actual crater places. So then that's another like, what? Then why are you calling them a result of meteorites, right? So I think we're dealing with nuclear war because then I go into a past nuclear war. I go into, I live in New Mexico. I live not that far from the White Sands, Trinitite area where they tested the first nuclear bomb. And I have many, many examples of Trinitite, which is also a glass formed from a nuclear explosion. So when I look at it microscopically, which I do in some of my things, I cannot tell the difference between my tektites and my Trinitites. So I think that we really could be needing to examine that maybe the Vedas were right or whatever. Like there really could have been great wars at some point that involved, I don't know if it was actually nukes or not, but some sort of high heat thing, because there is also intentional melting on a lot of these. Like you go to like Elephantine Island in Egypt and it literally looks like someone like was in Star Wars and went with the laser down on everything. Like it's just crazy the way things are melted. And then when I go to like in New Mexico, there's a place not too far from me called the City of Rocks, and it's just in the middle of nowhere, and it's these crazy rock boulders, but they look like it used to be a city. She looks like it used to be a stone city, and then like someone from Star Wars put the Death Star on it and was like, ew. It's all just like this weird, crazy melted rock. I don't know. I mean, I know that sounds woo and crazy, but I think why not?
Why not? I mean, if you're going to give me the tektites and the Trinitites, okay, right there, I've already got at least opened my mind to, well, okay, you're right. I don't have a crater, and a nuclear explosion would result in them. And, right, look, the shit I see up in North Alabama, you're right, okay? You'll have these giant rock formations, and they are obviously melted. I mean, metal and melted and just melted, right? But then, just down the hill, you have all of these larger pieces that are perhaps melted on one side, right? But the other side, you can still see clear as day what the carving, right, was. You can see that nothing really happened to it from the heat. So, yeah, I mean, there are plenty of anomalies when you even try to look at something like this. Nuclear explosion, if we just back away from the narrative for a fucking second, right? And we go, what could result in what I see? Yes. One of the biggest reasons I say airburst, right, is because I know an airburst can basically produce the effects of a nuclear bomb. You know what I mean? To produce what I see before me. So if I'm free of narrative, right, I have no reason to not go, well, if the Vedic texts and all the ancient texts said there was a bunch of shit in the air and they were blowing shit up, and many other traditions that talk about Lemuria and all these other continents, they tell me that one of them wanted to do right, one of them didn't, and they fucking fought it out with some shit that blew everything up, right?
Yeah.
So I have plenty of text, as you say, and cultural references to it, and I have evidence before me. I need an answer. It was high heat, high energy, right? And either or would work.
Well,
go on, Nikki, please do.
I mean, I and I also find it really bizarre about if you look at petroglyphs, like worldwide, they seem to be on charred surfaces is where they put their where they actually carve or whatever they do, acid wash it or however they get it to be like that, whether it's ochre or whatever. I mean, it seems to be true here. Like I love petroglyphs. They're like one of my favorite things. I'm kind of I'm not psychic, like I know the future, but I have a lot of psionic abilities, and I think you always take everybody's psionic abilities with a grain of salt. But one of mine is like when I touch shit, I get information, right? So like part of the reason I do this travel is like I get information, and it may be weird, crazy woo information for Nikki that doesn't actually
That's
mean
how
anything.
it started, right?
Nikki, you're talking my language. You can quit fucking calling it woo. Honestly.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, like,
because I identify, and I'll let you keep talking. I know exactly what.
Like, there's a place out here, not too far from me, called Three River Petroglyph Site, and it's close to Trittonite, but it's just these black charred rocks, and it has over 3,000 petroglyphs on it. It's like a huge place, and there's tons of these like weird circles and stuff on it, and these odd faces that have ears really high. And I like went around there and I was touching stuff, and I get weird. I think crop circles, when I look at them, I see schematics for magnets. Like I see where magnets should be placed if you were looking down on a machine. Like look, like it's showing you like that it's they're showing you 6 ways till Sunday how to make free energy machines, basically, or how to make a motor that doesn't stop running. They're giving you all different configurations of how you can do it, and it's all about basically how you do the north and south magnet within layouts to create a perpetual motion. And I think that that's what I'm looking at when I see some of these petroglyphs, especially when they have like a lot of these weird circles with these things around them. And so when I go there, I start like I think we had like fairies that were doing like magnet, like free energy kind of machine, and then they're gone, and then like we're a new race of experiment for this like Matrix or some shit, and this is like the evidence who was in the video game before us, and and sometimes you can tap into it. Okay, so there you go. That's kind of like what that's like the kind of thing I play around with.
I can see the meetings.
It's not so bad. And yeah, look, first of all, your little 2-minute synopsis of your worldview, I think fits nicely with just about any scenario, and any words people want to put on it. A lot of times in these conversations, we have to first realize that whatever word we're putting on the thing, a lot of us are talking about the same thing, first of all,
Yeah.
What you call fairy, you read Graham Hancock and Supernatural, and he gets lots of evidence going for how those stories seem like they morphed into UFO stories, And so it's like, hey, we're just calling one a fairy and one a graven, Well, there's all sorts of possibilities, is my point, and yours fits beautifully with all of them.
And that's another thing that's like, I was big into the UFO community for a long time because I've seen some UFOs and I have had UFO experiences. I've even had the experience with beings. But to me, that doesn't mean, I don't know who the fuck they are. That doesn't mean that they're from outer space. It just because they tell you they're from outer space doesn't mean they're from outer space. So that's why I'm kind of like, okay, so what?
I wish I could fist bump you on that. I don't know who the fuck you are.
Like, but that's like that's the same as if some homeless guy comes up to you and starts talking about like burritos or something. I mean, you still have to just kind of like, what?
I appreciate the potentially life-saving experience, but exactly who the fuck are you, sir?
Yeah, exactly. What are you doing? What do you want? You know, kind of thing. And so anyway, I feel like this last 100 years, we've been given the whole like Star Trek, Star Wars, like, you know, far, far away in a galaxy far, far away of these people that it's an infinite universe, this and this and this. And I think we're discounting, like, well, guess what? They're here. They're actually contacting you and dealing with you here on Earth here. So I don't care where they say they're from.
Some of them been here, what we call here, for a long time. Yeah, others are coming in from other dimensions that we don't know is here. Some of them are here and they're not really supposed to fucking be here. That's kind of part.
There could be inner Earth beings. There could be other. Yeah, I don't know.
Somebody survived the last Younger Dryas and went, all right, this is the third that we know of. Fuck it, we're not coming back up.
Yeah, and there is caves are crazy, and the amount of I love caves. I love going into caves, but like I'm big into like I think there's inner Earth stuff going on too.
Why wouldn't there be? Is all I have to say about that. Is once you just start to take on. First of all, if you just bite off a chunk of the catastrophe, whatever the catastrophe was, right? If you will bite off just a little bit of that science, right? And then you go to like a Derek QU or somewhere and you see the shit that's underground that has no reason to be there for anything else, right? And if you even nibbled on Noah or any other variant from around the world, right? What are you left with? You're left with go hop in one cave system. Why is it in North Alabama where I find this strange shit that cannot be explained above ground? Do I have cave systems that no one even knows about? Largest underground lakes and rivers in the world. What? Underground, you know, why wouldn't people forced with a catastrophe react basically like we would, but hopefully much smarter, and go, I'm going under, and I'm staying under, and we'll come back up when shit's okay, or we'll just stay under, right? Because this cyclical destruction keeps coming, you know?
And I mean, and it makes a lot of sense in terms of, you know, we've only dug like 20 miles or something. I mean, we haven't even dug that far, and and it doesn't even seem to get hotter the lower you go. Like, so I don't even know what's going on.
Even the science, when I looked into the science on our core, Nikki, you know what they have to tell me? I mean, it's what we think, right? We think we're sort of forecasting based on a couple of fucking waves we bounce. You know, nobody can tell you for sure even what's in the middle of this thing.
For me, what's really bothered me, like even when I was in geology, and I'm like, you know, I'm like a 19 or I'm like an 18 to 22-year-old kid, just like I've loved rocks since I was born. Like I've been collecting them my whole life. Yeah. I hear rocks. I can actually hear a sound that comes from them.
Rocks talk. I
they do talk. They have
that
like
tactile thing when you talk about it. Yeah, when you take a rock, and especially if you've got one you can feel or format, you know, how it fits into your hand and would it fit to someone else's hand, right? And then you can start to connecting to lots of info.
Well, and so this is what would make me mad. I'm like, okay, so basically you're telling me we have sedimentary, you know, metamorphosis or like igneous rock or something. Okay, cool. But basically your story is saying that it all comes from the same parent material in the core of the earth, and then it's just how long it's been out is like what shapes the mineralogy of it, and that doesn't make sense to me. So basically lava comes out and then it makes your metamorphosed rock, and then igneous rocks over time, and then you know, with like pressure, like, so depending on the rate at which it cooled changes what it ends up being. And then you're telling me like and then you have gems, which are the, like when you really start looking at the way they explain how rocks come to be, or even look at granite. Granite is a marvelous idea of like, okay, so it's a cookie dough display of feldspar and quartz and whatever else, tourmaline and etc. And then you it's not like there's just one giant quartz this big and and a big thing in tourmaline here and feldspar. No. It's sprinkled like in an equal distribution all around the entire thing. Like, riddle me that. How did that happen? How do we have a cookie dough mix that's so perfect? That doesn't make any sense on the way in which they tell us that rocks are formulated.
So how do you explain it?
I don't know. I think it's got to be different than one parent material that's slowly cooling. It's got to be some kind of, well, first of all, there's a mineral kingdom that there is intelligence to rocks themselves. So I do think there is like frequencies within the different mineralogy like that is in existence. So I think they grow. I think they're alive. I think they have way different origins than we are told by academia. Because like if you really start sitting with them, looking at them, touching them, thinking about them all the time, you'll realize that like something completely different is going on than what we're told. And I'm not saying that like God came down and was like, and you're gonna be a turquoise, and you're gonna be a quartz, and you're gonna be some feldspar. I don't know what happened, but I am saying what they're telling us happened is not it.
Well, I'm with you. Look, I like exactly where you're going, right? My mind was kind of putting together. I don't know let me see if I followed you right? Because look, Nikki, where I found this giant rocks in central Alabama, right, across where all this shit's pointing is what seems to me, in my little redneck ways of verifying this shit, big pieces of precious metal, okay? It's these giant pieces, Nikki, that look like, here's what it looks like. If I had a huge fucking unimaginable amount of precious metal and it got melted along with all this other shit and, it flowed somewhere, okay, it probably looked like this, right? And I'm standing there, Nikki, and I'm looking at all this rock going, all right, let me throw it in some muriatic acid. Let me leave it for 6 months. Let me go back. Still there. I can't tell if it's silver or gold, but it's still there, right? So now going along with everything else I saw on the ground, what'd that tell me? They had huge stores of this, right? It's the only way it got here. There's no other narrative that could explain what I find. Then I start talking to Ricardo, and I start learning about Michigan copper. And I start learning about these giant chunks of copper sitting on top of the ground, purer than any that can be found on Earth. And you start going, so did somebody have a bunch of really pure copper before all this fire and flood and nuclear war or whatever it was hit? All I'm trying to show you is I can stretch out there too. And also there's holes. We're starting to find, if you'll look at shit holistically or down on the ground close enough, there's holes, and you can't apply the standard narrative of geologic time and formation to everything. You can't.
Well, that's why I get really kind of black-pilled, I guess is the term I'm going to use, with just the formation of how our planet is formed or what's really going on with and you have to look at that like the parent of the video game, right? Like the base molecules and mineralogy of what's happening. And I think and I did just talk to Ricardo about like all the different, we have more copper in mine than can be accounted for, right?
Right.
And copper is like it's very weird that we use that as a conductive metal. There's so much loss in like in our electrical wires and stuff, we use copper, but I think there's a lot better that you could just literally figure out a way to do like compacted carbon would be way better than that. But anyway.
Turns out you can use the air.
You can use, it turns out there's use Wi-Fi and everything else. The amount of research, I just have to say something about rocks in general. I don't know the answer, okay? I'm not saying I know the answer, but I am saying we all need to re-examine what we're told about how they came to be.
You're talking my love language whenever you talk anything about rocks. I mean, if behind me is not evident, all of this comes from literally years of living with and finding my solace and finding my peace and finding everything with sandbars, these rocks, right? And when you do that and you stay with them and you let your mind go, all right, for however long human beings were here, thousands of years, they had rock technology. Right? They had that's what they were dealing with. They didn't have cell phones and all this other shit, right? So they would have been doing just this. So when I was afforded the time to do just that, you're right. It all starts to talk to you, and you can just cut it there and realize that if somebody had taken a lifetime, a lifetime more to do what I was doing in a few years, yeah, they would have a completely different relationship. I go over to the middle of the Coosa River, Nikki, and it's dammed and flooded. There's this little island that, when the dam's open, it's just like a tree top sticking out. But when the water's down where it normally is, it's like you can get out there, big rocks. I go out there and I start picking up all the rocks because, I'm looking at them and I'm going, those are shaped, right? But they look black. And I bring them home and I bleach them out and I go, quartz. I realize I'm standing on an entire pile of worked quartz, right? Now, why? My modern brain can really honestly, if you just ask somebody that hasn't spent time out there like you have or understands what rocks can be, if you ask them to look at that and go, why would these people take obviously generations to harvest this shit, shape it, and make an island out of it, right? I don't know. It's kind of like the cart ruts, right?
I mean, quartz is very important. People should realize that quartz is basically glass. It's like naturally forming glass, but it's also piezoelectricity. So if you put quartz under pressure, it creates a thing, and it grows. Quartz is a crystal, and the difference between a crystal and a rock is that it actually, like, in the right conditions, like with the right, chemicals and temperature and pressure underground, it literally grows like a small tree, like a flower. That's why you have all these different faces and this, that, and it has like these weird geometries that come out of it. And yeah, exactly. And there's so much more to, like, and all your beaches are made of quartz sand. Like, there's quartz everywhere.
All the good ones are.
We have to use quartz in our phone to amplify electricity or to amplify the signals. Like, it's an amplification technique. So
before you keep going, how do you say piezoelectricity?
Piezoelectricity. So it's like PIE and then a bunch Z and a bunch of stuff, like, I don't know how to spell my name.
Yeah, I would say piezoelectricity, but it's exactly the same thing.
Okay.
Tomato.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Polygonal.
No, I think those are very different.
Piezoelectricity.
Polygamy, my bad.
No. Yeah, like, look into that, because, like, I feel like that's like a kind
That's
of.
what they do in Utah, not polygonal. My bad.
Oh, like, yeah. Polygon. That's pretty good.
So I'm here looking at, I found it. So you were talking about living stones, and there is actually stones that grow and multiply, and then they keep growing. They're called the trovants. And let me see if I can share, if I found out where we are. We are here.
I know quartz, while he's looking, is hugely important, Nikki. I was kind of just not answering when I said, why do these people make this quartz island? But when you spend time around it, just like you say, the quartz beach, right? Go down to Destin or wherever the hell down here in the Panhandle, right? And you're standing on quartz, right? How do you feel after a weekend on the quartz with some sunshine and salt in you, right? What was both of those factors have in common? Crystals, right? I've got salt and I'm on the quartz. So you learn, I now go to this quartz island to meditate, right? It's where I go to pray, because there's power there. You can feel it when you're in tune with such things. As you say, to the rocks talking. And here we have rocks growing.
Yes. So this is called trovants. And they are quite unique, because this started as a small pebble, right?
It's like a nipple.
And it grows. And will be another rock. So you see they emerged, they came out, and then all of this started from one single rock. And they keep multiplying. So in here we see one opening. You see those?
Mm-hmm.
This one grew like this. This is all came from.
Is this, how accepted is this that they grow?
Oh, they are very well studied. They are considered a geological phenomenon.
It's like the goddess stones, which is called, what are they called? They're the ones that grow in caves, and it's like the calcium
deposit. I was thinking like stalactites
and they look really similar
stalagmites.
to the stalagmites, yeah. But I mean, like, I think
pulling something out of the environment and just.
No one knows how they grow, where they go. The scientists cannot explain it. They just documented this. See, look at this one. So they just
pair of balls, Ricardo.
yeah.
You
Look,
have
this
them
this
somewhere.
one is
You've got a field of them. I see.
yeah.
Giant balls. Yeah.
So all of these are stones that keep growing constantly. They are where they are from in Romania. Yeah. So
Of course, there's weird shit over there.
but
Well, I mean, I don't mean that in any negative way, right? I mean, you're talking middle Europe. You're not far, first of all. I mean, you're on the same continent as Göbekli Tepe. You know, it's just the Varna culture. You know, that whole area has just got things that need some answers, and so I'm not surprised. Is all I mean. Not to
Yeah.
make fun of Romanians. Sorry, I've never been. Don't know anything about you. I'm sure. It's
I've never
lovely.
either, but I would love to go. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the Costa Rica spheres and some weird things like that that don't make sense. Which I've actually seen the Costa Rica spheres, and what's bizarre about that is they're all different. They're like, one will be limestone, one will be quartz. Like they're different kinds of material, and they'll be next to each other in the same park. So those are definitely intentionally formed.
so that ruins the explanation that they are a geological formation because that is exclusive to one type of rock and not necessarily to another.
That's not the same type of rock.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, like, I think, like when you look at like a quartz mine or limestone, like we have a lot more explaining to do than we were told.
Well,
It's the questions, right? I mean, that's what I like, and it's like I don't understand shoving the questions aside, especially when, like you or I, you go looking, and there's just so many of them. You know?
Yeah, there really is.
and
Rocks that grow, Ricardo. That's
Yeah.
the thing.
yeah, but going back what we were saying before, if we consider, and this is a good question for you to follow up, Nikki. I don't know what your opinion is on it, but if we imagine that we go to extremes to the situation we are facing now, the weakening of the magnetic field, that is our shield to the sun, right? So even if the shield keeps diminishing, it doesn't mean there is a catastrophe like a tsunami or this or that. That is alone to be impossible to live on a surface if we don't have any protection from the sun, which means the only time you can come out is from sunset to sunrise, because otherwise there's no protection, right? And some parts, that heat could be strong enough to even melt stone, to reshape stone, to mesh stone together that wasn't, to create deposits of glass from sand that we find all around. And what we found all around these underground cities. Anatolia has at least 300 of them. Some of them could have 6,000 people inside, right? They usually have one way in or one way out, which means that the explanation that they are defense structures is completely ridiculous, because you just need to put fiery things into the vents that are clearly visible around the land to suffocate all of them to death. So they wouldn't have to fight even. Just lock them inside, they'll starve eventually or something. We do not find them everywhere because we are not looking. That's why I think we are not finding, and they are not obviously seen today. Then they are not obvious in the terrain. But considering what we are going through now, what are your ideas on the possible upcoming event?
Like, do I think there's going to be a solar flash kind of thing, or do I think? I mean, but that is an interesting thing about. Like, I just saw the Northern Lights the other day in New Mexico. So I went out and saw, and the whole sky was like red with them. So yeah, like, and that's not crazy news, but that should be crazy news because that's never happened in my lifetime.
I live in Alabama, and there were people, telling me, get out in the yard, use your phone, and an hour north. No, you don't need your phone in Alabama.
Did you see them?
No, I didn't. I was busy. I did attempt it though. I just I didn't have the good vantage point. But still, I mean, just backing up your point, that's
normal. That's not normal. It's never happened. So
my question, Nikki, is: do you think that the field will weaken enough to it start to becoming a danger for us? Because for you, I think, because of your profession, you should be one of the most interested people on this topic because you're a lot of the time in the air. But do you think it will keep going down? Do you think it will reverse eventually or not? Do you think it will cause what some people are now defending, that it will
Yeah, I
cause a
think
movement of the earth, that will cause a swash of the oceans into the land and a global flood catastrophe. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, yeah, I used to be into the pole shifts and all that. I don't know about any of that anymore, one way or the other. But I think that I think one thing that you can be certain of is that there used to be a time where ginkgo leaves were as big as my body, and we still have ginkgo leaves, and they're like this big now. So something in the conditions of the planet has changed, whether it's the amount of oxygen, whether it's the amount of daylight, whether the way in which we experience time itself. Maybe like, if time is a rotation of your, we don't even really know what time is, right? But if it's said to be how far you are from the sun and the rate at which you rotate and this and that, okay, fine. Something in the conditions of this planet that is preserved in rock can show you that this is not a seasonal, everything's the same all the time place. Even like 10,000 years ago when you had freaking 20-foot mammoths walking around where I live right now. That's weird, okay? Giant sloths and megalodons and this and that. I mean, like,
Camels.
This is like...
Yeah, look,
Camels.
Think about the Ice Age people, guys. I mean, whatever we believe was here, right? That's what when I first started finding this shit, I'd stand up on these hills and look way over and go, we call it a mountain, but it's starting to look like a wall, right? But you sit up there and you let your mind go, well, these people were living with sloths that could kill you, Imagine, what is that life?
Then that's what makes me kind of go like, why are we not okay with giants when everything else was giant? And then the other thing is that right now, if a blue whale got out of the water, it collapses on its own skeleton because it can't even, it's too much gravity for it. Like a dinosaur, like a bronchiosaurus or something with the long ass neck, couldn't survive outside of water even if it was in that shape. Sometimes with the dinosaurs you have to wonder, like, there's not that many full skeletons that have been found, so you're like, okay, like, you have to look at the ones that have been fully found. I think there's there's hundreds that have been found that are full, but not necessarily of every species. But let's say like some of those big giant dinosaurs with the long necks and tails, those would, like, even if we were like, let's Jurassic Park it and reproduce them, they wouldn't even be able to lift their head in our conditions that we live in right now. So this planet goes through stuff to where we aren't the same always. So I know, and I there's like Aboriginal tribes that talk about when the moon came, like 200,000 years ago.
The moon is
so
weird.
The moon is weird.
I
don't
told
like the moon.
Malmore today on
Tidal
X,
lock is weird.
my
The
post
same
was,
size
I'm
as
not
the
a betting
sun.
man, but if I was, I'd put my money on the moon. What is it? The moon is not fucking natural for the wind.
Yeah.
There's just
It looks
too
like
much.
the Death Star.
But I like the fact that some of these it does, and it rings too. It's hollow, you say. Anyhow, before I diverge just there, I just like the native, like you say, the native myths. I like the fact that when you dig into some of them, their description of what Earth was like before the moon arrived is precisely about what Earth would be like without the moon. All of the conditions that the moon stabilizes, making life possible here on Earth. They describe that accurately, and how does some Aboriginal, somebody that I'm told doesn't know dick, is describing to me precisely what the Earth was like now that I've got science and can figure it out. He got it right too. You can't discount all these things.
You really can't. And I mean, I think, are we changing? Yeah. Like, will it be gradual? Will it be sudden? I don't know. Maybe we live in interesting times, because that would be cool if there was something.
We already live in interesting times. Let's just hope they're fun as well, and there's a little less of,
Yeah, because I really don't want to go into Mad Max and like be like, getting in a out like drinking gasoline.
I
or something.
stay away from the total catastrophism, Ricardo, myself. I mean, look, if I'm to honor the sort of shaman side of this shaman and philosopher thing, I would see the bare minimum. If anybody's going to try to help us out, right? The bare minimum, you get like, let's turn off the electricity, right? What's wrong with society? First of all, the Matrix. The Matrix is propped up by mass communications and technology and all that other bullshit, right? My kids are taken by the phone screen. Let's just wipe that out and let us try to live like the natives did for a bit. Okay, that's a solar flare or something, something that doesn't wipe everything but takes us back. So being as I'm on this planet at the moment, Ricardo, I like to look at maybe just the bare minimum necessary to help the shift along occurring. Even though right now, look, dude, Ricardo, I just sent you the little post from X about the Northeast getting coldest temperatures on Earth this coming weekend. I mean, everywhere you look is first ever. Every time you turn on the news and look at just the weather, the natural conditions of the planet, whether you want to say those are man-made or it's just natural signals, either way, shit is just weird, and ignoring it is not helpful.
I mean, you could also say that we haven't really been. I mean, we've only been recording it for 100 years or so that's not, or depending on, like, globally recording it everywhere. We haven't been doing that very long, so it is kind of hard to, they do like to sensationalize everything. So there's that. They do,
but it's I live down here in the Southeast, and our weather just this year, Nikki, is, outside of the shit they spray in my sky every day, that alone, just what the natural environment is doing, is not what it did my whole life. Now, is that, whatever that is, my human experience is telling me something's up, and, that's all I'm saying. Go ahead.
Well, I also think, like, if you guys are open to woo stuff, it's like, there's definitely... Like, time is weird. Like, I had a groundhog year in 2023 to 2024 where I repeated the year twice. And then I also have had a 30-minute deja vu that wouldn't end. And then I've had, these kinds of things where I have a lot of Mandela effects where some things, like, just will all of a sudden be in my reality that I should have known about and I've never known about before. And so I think you could basically change the planet you're on. You could change the timeline you're on. I think you can kind of, like, roll into a new timeline if you want.
No.
I know that's weird, but I think there's something to it that I think is...
On a collective sense, no doubt. I mean, without even saying whether or not everything else was weird, I think on a collective sense, what you're describing is a pretty good way to put what we're experiencing, honestly. I am curious, though, if you want to only, for just a moment, to talk about the 30-minute deja vu experience?
Yeah, I went to, my niece was born in 2017, and I didn't get to see that solar eclipse, the full solar eclipse, because she was born during the eclipse. So I went to go help watch my niece while my other niece was being born, kind of thing. So I was like, I want to see a full solar eclipse. So then I
Family, right? Family.
Damn. But it's cool that the kid was literally born in the eclipse. But anyway, so
the 2021 or 2019?
The 20, I think it was 2017, because then in 2018 I decided I wanted to go see there was one in Chile. Right. So I flew down there, and I flew into Santiago, and then I went up to the Atacama Desert to see it, and it was amazing, and I loved it. And then the next day we traveled down to, I can't remember how you say that name of that town, like Verspuro. Anyway, it's a bunch of graffiti everywhere. It's, like, super cool. And we were eating, and I was like, we need to go see the sunset. So we got out of the restaurant, and we only had like 30 minutes before the sun was going to set. And all of a sudden, like, I've never been here ever in my entire life. And I knew what it was like. I was in the middle of a flip, and I wasn't stopping. And I knew everything that was going to happen. Like I started, like, seeing things, like, I could see the streets in my hands, like they were, like, expanding out. Like if you're in a mirror where, like, you could see, like, a bunch of you and stuff like that. And I was not on any drugs or anything. I mean, there was no, it was just, like, literally, like, a lasagna and some, like, juice or something. There was no alcohol. There was nothing. And I was I kept on, and it was the feeling of that deja vu, like you've been here before, you've been to this, and I kept on saying to my friend, oh my God, like I'm in a deja vu, and it's like not ending, it's not ending. And finally she got annoyed with me, and she was like, okay, Nikki, well then tell me how the deja vu ends. And I was like, I don't know, I was like, oh, we get to the end of this like corridor, or we find like this balcony, and there's a little gate, and I will open the gate, and there's these stairs that go all the way down, and there's these little shoes at the bottom of the stairs. Like it's like, I don't know, like a concrete staircase that goes down, and then it locks into place, and that's when it ends. And as I'm telling her that, I'm telling her that, and I'm telling her that, and I'm telling her that, and and then she was like, well, if that happens, that'll be like that. Like she didn't believe me; she thought I was just crazy. But so then I was just walking through this whole thing, like knowing everything that was about to happen as it was happening, and experiencing it like multiple times. And then I finally get to the end of I finally, exactly what I told her happens. And I look at her and her husband, and then I look down at this gate, and I open it, and there's a staircase with like, I don't know, like a concrete staircase with like 20 or so steps, and then these little pair of shoes at the bottom, and then everything locked into place, and I was back.
So was it expensive to create all that setting previously just to impress others?
It would have been very expensive to do that, yeah.
So quickly then, while I was asking, that makes sense to me from my understanding of deja vu, and it also gets back to what you were saying about timeline, shifting and adjustment. So the way deja vu was put to me was, okay, when you experience deja vu, do whatever you wouldn't ordinarily do next. Right? And I was like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, well, if normal Jason would go left, go right, right? With that choice that comes right after the deja vu, right? And what I took from that was, okay, let me go test this shit out. Next time I get deja vu, we will see, right? Won't we? So I did, right? I did. And I was confronted with, oh yeah, shit, okay, let's go, right? Now, did I have any sort of weird experience that I can say confirmed that I shifted a timeline or anything of that sort that somebody want to go, hey, what was that like? No. But can I report that what I was told, then I went and investigated, did seem to check out? Because it's like at the quantum level, when you're trying to deal with anomalies, right? That's not the word I'm looking for. They use in quantum physics. Anyway,
quantum entanglement?
No. It's not. Anyway, it's another word for like auspicious, but it's an anomaly. Something outside the norm. Anyway, once one occurs, others are drawn to it and begin occurring, right? So I started finding that on the spiritual level, I could apply the same principles, right? Now, being Christian, I then added in also, meaning I just, teachings of Christ, right? And be clear. That means that I also went, okay, what if I kind of listen to him and I made every decision the one you wouldn't make, but bend it towards love, right? And so when I'm playing with deja vu and playing with all these other actions you can take, that then when you just are still willing to sit back and watch, you can look around and sort of record data just like you would in a lab and go, look, there is an anomalous occurrence that's, well, that's beneficial for my storyline. There is an anomalous occurrence. Okay, next time I get deja vu now, let me really... And you can start to add up over the course of a very short amount of time the fact that whatever it is, this phenomenon, these phenomena that we all experience, however we describe them, they're real, right? Now, where I might want to take my experiences is, well, that's mine, and that's up to me, right? But what I can report, and what so many of us can report, is that these experiences are something.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's interesting. I'm going to take that to and put that in my wheelhouse of tools next time if I go through like an uncomfortable time anomaly again, I'll be like, okay, do something crazy that I would normally not do.
Look, it works. I went to my buddy who was helping me think through some of this stuff, and I basically put forth what I just put to you. I was like, dude, it's just like quantum physics. If I bend this way and do that, then all these anomalies will start occurring. And he just looks up at me and says, that's fucking with the laws of physics. Well, it's working so far.
But I mean, like, I feel like more like I have the belief that I'm going to uncover like more like sage wall type stuff even in New Mexico, just because I'm going to manifest that somehow. Like I think sometimes I think we're dealing, I don't know if we're dealing with other timelines. Like it's almost like we're getting bleed over of other dimensions with some of these sites into ours. And that's something that I've played around with, thinking like, okay, and more come up all the time that I hear about. Like I never ever heard of Ishinahoden until last year, and then I went and saw it this year. But it looks like a giant anvil, and it's in Japan, and now in the timeline I live in, it's probably always been here, right? But in my timeline before, I have looked up many things about like megaliths in all kinds of different countries, and definitely in Japan, because I was looking into the what's the underground Yonaguni, yeah. So it's just weird, like when I went there, how many more I found, because I had the intention to find them, and how many more came into my timeline, my consciousness, my awareness. So that's when I really start going like, I don't know. It's almost like we're creating parts of the video game as we go.
I see what you're harping on. I do. I still, again, the word that's going to pop into me is I use narrative blindness, right? Because, but whatever you describe it, whether you describe it as timeline, my awareness, right? My experience was this, Nikki. I had to walk myself through understanding things that everyone else, right, say are rocks and are natural are not, right? Now, that's not something you just fucking flip a switch on overnight, right? But once you do, you then find yourself standing and living with something that you know, right? Especially once you find all the things I've documented, that right? Was this thing that they cannot see, right? Now, like plain as day, they can't see it until if you get anybody to bring them in long enough, sure. Now, is that a different timeline? I don't know. But I've defined that myself as narrative blindness, because there was a time in my life when, you would have said what I'm saying now, and I would have been like most people and gone, but that's not what anybody else says.
Yeah, but you change your perspective. So your perspective has changed. Your context has changed.
Well, sure.
And so your understanding has changed, right? But in terms of timelines, I think that regarding what Nikki was saying, I call it self-actuation in my book Stardust. And I think we can actively create our future by being intentional about it, by truly believing it. The problem is the belief, right? Is truly believing in it. It's like people that say they received a miracle and they are healed. Sometimes it's not the magic of the place. Sometimes it's just the fact that they believed. We see this all the time by the placebo effect. The fact that you believe that you will have benefits for you, those benefits happened. So I see a lot of science trying to explain why chemicals work, but they are not too interested in explore why the placebo effect works, right? They just say, oh, it works. It's because somehow it creates the same effect by sympathetic or empathetic
they can heal themselves. We're trying to sell shit.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, good point.
So that doctor, right? The son of the doctor treated a man. He's also a doctor, and he goes and treats a man for a heavy fever that had been coming to the where they practice at least 6 or 7 times, and always caught the father, and finally caught the son. And the son goes and see, oh, you have high fever, it's not going away. So he inspects the man and finds what do you call those leeches? What you call that? The blood suckers, right? Yeah. And he takes it off of the man, and the man went well. And so he then tells the father, like, well, you saw the man 6 or 7 times and never took the leech out of the man, and said, yeah, now you're going to pay for what that client was paying, right? Because he never told him that he had a leech, so that he kept coming and he keep charging the fee. So the first lesson in medicine is a client cured is a client lost. So
True.
Well,
The sacrament of Hippocrates or whatever it is that they have to do is only worth what it's worth, because then they're completely corrupted by the system itself. It's not what you feel or how you are, or just give people a chance to talk for a while. Sometimes that works perfectly, right? It's just, what do you feel? This and that. Let me put the stethoscope, right? Write it down. They don't know what's going on with you, and diseases are at least 50% emotional. So
right, it's what we accept, I think, a lot, right, Ricardo? So if I label you as whatever it is, autistic or, cancerous by the time you're 40, because of what your mom had, if I, as the individual, just right off that buy into that and all the associated symptoms, it's like reverse placebo, because I've accepted. That's, you said, Ricardo, belief, and so much of this is the first. That's just the thing, is so many people just look to these so-called authorities, and whatever that authority says, they go, okay, and then inside them, they internalize and accept that diagnosis / prognosis, and then they accept that reality, and of course that's what happens.
Sure, and Nikkiana will know. Do you know Wim Hof for sure?
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
So he was challenged by the establishment that he was a fraud, right? So
they put poison in him in a lab.
Yeah, and they accepted, and he accepted to be giving a neurotoxin to him and people that he would have a week to train, or more or less, right? And so they have an equal number of people that had not been trained, right? And they injected everybody with a neurotoxin. From his group, not one single person got even sick. They all got up after a few hours and went away. All of the others, some of them were weeks interned in the hospital because of the effects of the neurotoxin, which I find astonishing that someone volunteered to receive a neurotoxin. But
why didn't I get the training? Shit.
But in this case, you have a clear example that the man can teach you how to control your body, but the thing is, you have to believe it, because if you go and take his course and you don't, just bunch of bullshit, you won't get the same effects, because it requires belief. It's not a matter of adding 2 and 2. It's not physics. It's not. It's belief. It's completely different from any palpable knowledge that you can absorb or summarize.
It's belief based on your own eyes, right?
Sure.
First of all, it's quit giving away your agency. Trust what you've got coming in, right, Nikki, and internally, or trust your eyes. A story that I thought of in the opening of this, Nikki, when you were talking about the way things are preserved. There's this neighborhood in Birmingham that's called Mountain Brook, right? I mean, the only way to describe it is, imagine if every house basically almost has its own hill, and these houses are Beverly Hills, right? 2 million in Alabama, which translates to like 10 million, somewhere else, right? Just massive. And in every yard are boulders, weird melted, splats of 30 feet of stone, and so they protect it. It's very bougie, hard to live there, right? Well, I was redoing a house in the neighborhood. We were flipping houses. We got one. It was way up on the top, up on the ridge, right? As soon as I show up, I talk my partner into buying it, because I see the yard, right? It's just grown over with ivy and shit all over these massive boulders, and this house is up on stilts. We had to spend $30,000 just reinforcing it back into these weird ass rocks, right? I started going in the house when we're doing tear out, and the dude that lived here, now obviously I've described the neighborhood, he had plenty of fucking money, right? But I go in and everything basically been taken out but a few photo albums, a few personal photo albums. And I start flipping through, and I start realizing this guy had spent his money and his last 10 years of life taking his niece, or whoever she was, because she went with him, to all of these sites you've described all around the world, right? And he, in his personal journals, was documenting all the commonalities, right? I then go and I'm cleaning out his little closet. There was a tiny closet of stuff left, and I always just look for books and cool shit, I saw books. I went and I grabbed one, and it's the only Graham Hancock book I hadn't read yet. It was Underworld, right? It's sitting up there all fully leafed through. I say all of that to say this. Look, what I had in front of me was just a dude, right, who had looked in his yard, the same as I had looked at all these rocks scattered everywhere, looked under him and went, whatever they're telling me, is not the case. And then he used his time and his money to go prove it to himself. He started going to all these places, going, "Yeah, that's what's in my front yard." And so we've talked a while about woo, and that story stuck in my mind to bring up, not only because it was just cool for me, right? But I right there saw that no, anybody that takes the time, Nikki, to look at these things like we look at them, if you will let yourself and hold your curiosity like it's fucking valuable for a second, you will be faced with what we all get faced with, going, standard narrative doesn't work. I don't care what answers you start plugging in, the ones they gave me don't fit.
I agree with that because I used to be in the standard narrative. I'm a product of academia. So, yeah, you don't have to be narrative bias, as you say. I like that word.
Narrative blindness. Yeah, it really is. Yeah. Look, I'm sure you've experienced it. You sit there and you show something to somebody, and you see what it is, right? And you just try to not feed that, and you just show it to somebody else, and they see something totally different, right? And there, if you grasp that moment, you go, they're blind, narrative blindness. And like you say, I went to the universities too, I was a product. I had to, again, get myself out of it. So we know what that is, whatever you call it, as you say.
I think the problem is not the academic view per se, is the fact that it's valued above others, because they are just one part of the tale, right? Because the information is important, it's just not definitive, but it is important to the whole. Then you need another guy to go there and look it from his perspective, and another guy, and they're all of that information combined will then produce what can be used to gather answers to the many questions raised. The problem is we stop at the first step, the archaeologists weren't there. Sometimes they don't even like the people of archaeoastronomy that goes there to study the alignments. There's bullshit, why are these people kind of trampling over my site? Right. They don't like crossing of fields. And so because one narrative, as you say, that we are all biased by our own narrative, no matter how broad it is. That's our bias. The problem is theirs is a little bit narrow because it's all based on, I found this little. I send you that picture. So you find hundreds of things that could be possible artifacts, right? And these people are justifying a site, finding one single thing like this size, and even pointing it with the tools they're using to excavate. And they say immediately, this was, no matter how thousands of years they were saying, and this site was a group of individuals that stay here for a very brief time, probably 5 or 6 individuals, and the date was 16,000 years or something like that. So how the hell can they say that for one tiny little piece of material?
Now, right? Dating is something I just don't take it to heart anymore.
Yeah, but 5 or 6 individuals, they were specific. This was left by 5 or 6 individuals that stay at this spot for just a few days. And if people realize how hard, how almost impossible it is to create any kind of fossil or any kind of remain. It's a miracle that we find anything, because it requires very specific conditions. It requires very rapid deposits on top of it. It has to have certain conditions of oxygen and so on and so forth. The fact that we find so many things, that's why creationists go, prove me to that is 100,000 years. It can't be, right? It can't be. Let me bury the guy like in there, and let's see how long until it completely disappears. So all of it's just the fact that we are valuing one narrative above all others, and they gain that step, they gain that position in the ruling of history, and that's, to me,
it's
that's
hierarchies,
the problem.
And I do feel like there's when you get too caught up in intellectual hierarchies, it keeps people closed-minded, honestly. Because I love, like a lot of people are always shitting on the academic world in general, but I love that people are actually, it is kind of, I know they have to do restoration and stuff, and it can't be exactly like it was found a lot of the times, but I like that somebody cleaned up all the brush at Sacsayhuaman and that I can walk around it. I like that somebody dug up parts of, Egypt and that I can like now go into the Assyrian. I like that they've done the work that allows you to go research too. But it's just kind of like, you know, I used to be for a year I was a conservator. Like I was going into conservation, and so like I would rebuild pots. Like that's what my job was at this conservation studio.
Oh, Shaman
so,
has
like,
10 years of work for you to start, so don't worry.
Huh?
Shaman has 10 years of work for you then, rebuilding pots.
Rebuilding pots, yeah, and I have tons of pottery shards and stuff too. But like people like would break their porcelain thing and then come and I'd fix it for them. Anyway, glue it together and everything.
Yeah, I've got some puzzle boxes as well. That's
but it's just like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
But just because I put it together doesn't mean I understand the context of it. Like just because I cleaned the object or unsurfaced the object or reassembled the object doesn't make me any more of an authority of it than anybody else. So that's kind of one of the things that it's like, you know.
Well, in regards to that, and
I
that
like
is,
that I want to hear their perspective,
sure,
but
you know,
it's not
as
the
well
only
as
one.
I
Because
do, you came from academia, right, Nikki? Nobody here wants to have anything against academia. I loved my time at university. I mean, look at me. Do you think I was not exceptionally happy in an anthropology class with, you know, all of this? Was I not exceptionally happy in Latin or whatever the hell else it was?
Yeah, it gives you a chance to
information, cramming it in, right? I love academia. The problem we've all encountered is now that we've come to the realization that that narrative thing, I say it like this, oftentimes what we call higher education is merely just expensive isolation from reality, right? Because once you get out into reality, right, you start to come up to things that those books just do not fucking address. And in many cases, those books told you a lie, right? Now, that's not an academic's fault. I don't hate academia for that, right? I still love the knowledge, the info, and all those who pursue it. You know, that's kind of what I have to say on it, right? We can't help though that once we got out of there and we started standing on stuff and going to stuff and being there, that we started seeing something else.
yeah, exactly.
Nikki, you've been to a lot of sites, and this is very controversial and hardly touched. That is, from your perspective, and I'm picking up on what you said, would you prefer to go... I'm not saying all of the sites, but I think there are many sites that deserve to be put back to their former glory. That it would be much more interesting to see them exactly as they were. And if we are so advanced as we say we are, it wouldn't be that difficult. Although it took 33 years to build a goddamn museum in Cairo, and the period was almost 22, but according to them. But there were sites that I would like to see as they were, when we know exactly as they were, not as in Peru where that gate is, and there is a site that was highly modified. I can't remember the name right now, but there are places that we have a very good idea of how they were, so we could make them as pristine as they were when they were actually functional. Would you like to see that recreated in your travels, or do you prefer to go there and see the ruins?
You know, a good example of a place that like Mexico does a lot of reconstruction, and they use they put like little rocks in their mortar so that you know it was reconstructed. But for me, I would much rather you clear all the debris and you have like certain pathways that I can go up and I could see the rubble as it is. Like, you know, when I was in Scotland, or a lot of castles in Europe, they redo them like you're talking about to where they're pristine to the way they used to be. But my favorite places have been like where you go kiss the Blarney Stone in Ireland, where it's just like moss growing up everything. The place is falling down, and I feel like a Keebler elf like walking around in there, you know. Or like.
So did you have somebody hold you upside down, or did you manage?
Yeah, there's a guy up there. You hold your legs as you bend upside down and kiss that disgusting disease thing. But it's great. I mean, maybe that's why I talk so much. I have the Blarney Stone thing or whatever. But anyway, or like you go to Stirling, Scotland, and that one's just completely left untouched. And people are like, "Oh, I love Edinburgh Castle," and I'm like, "It's like modern. Like they have running water." Whereas you go to some other, like, I like the abandoned stuff that's, because we never can really get it to its pristine, what it really looked like, because we don't know. There's no way to really 100% know what Machu Picchu looked like in its heyday. You know, we don't know what the ceilings looked like. We don't know what the door. I mean, we don't know what.
Sure.
We don't know.
So if it was done according to the culture as we know it, would it be so bad, for instance, to visit the Giza Plateau as it was, or some of the Egyptian temples that are enormous and vast?
Like me, I don't want plaster on anything. I don't want added. I want as little. I don't mind them trying to piece together the fallen rubble as best as they can. I just don't want it put together in a way that's permanent and that fucks with the integrity of the historical context of it.
We've already got an Epcot Center, right?
Yeah. So it's kind of like, yeah, we do already have a. So it's like, that's why I'm not really into restoration, even though I used to do it. I'm more into conservation. Like, you conserve as much as possible to that. And then, you know, like, there's a big debate over, like, okay, Göbekli Tepe, they put the big circle thing around. Now, they did a shit job, because when you go to Göbekli Tepe, they literally did like, put their like stadium-sized pillars in active dig site area, and they haven't even completely dug the whole thing up, which is stupid. But and they're doing another one at Karahan Tepe right now too. And then like, when you look how big the drill holes, it goes like 50 feet down, and there's the hole that they had dug those 50 feet pillars, and there's like 12 of them or something. There's fragments of really cool shit that came out of that. So they like, at the expense of whatever, just dug into an active dig site, which is stupid. So I hate that about it. But at the same time, you have to realize, like, when you uncover something, like, for example, I was with the paleontology group, and I went to Texas. There's it's called Fossil Rim area, or Glen Rose is the name of the town, and they have this the dinosaur footprints all over, and they have the dinosaurs with the human footprints. That's kind of controversial there or whatever. But anyway, I went with a paleontologist just there, and he took us to a site where he personally found the three-toed, I don't know, whatever,
Tridactyls.
like, kind of pterodactyls. No, but
Tridactyls.
Tridactyls. Okay, found a tridactyl type print, and there was about like 35 or 6 actual like treks that he had uncovered in the limestone. And then he was showing us a picture from 50 years ago. Like, this dude was in his like 80s or whatever, and then versus now, and the amount of weathering after it has been uncovered from 50 years ago to now it's almost like 75% faded and gone, compared to what it was when it was first uncovered. So you do deal, after you uncover it to the world, you're going to deal with erosion from wind. Like, you're going to deal with sun damage, rain damage, water damage, wind damage, all the elements and stuff. So it is kind of like, I would like to see them conserved as best as possible, and then protected from the elements if we could. But you can't really do that. That's a lot of money.
I'm not sure if it was White Sands or the other similar place in South America, but when the controversy was, some academics were trying to stop her from doing the reveal of the footprints, because they would disappear in one generation, right? And she says, well, if we don't uncover them, I cannot document them. And after I uncover them, yes, they will disappear, but they will preserve exactly as they are in a museum, right? What you say, I think it's a step further, is we can have both. We can have the casts on a museum, and we can have this place preserved, even though it's in the middle of nowhere. But we have the technology to do it, and we sure have the money to create such a simple structure as to preserve the footprints. So, well, in the end, perhaps it's a matter of politics. Yeah.
At White Sands, Ricardo, wasn't it? Keep going, but wasn't it?
Yeah, White Sands says
as they uncovered it. Okay, so you said they washed away, but also when they eroded away, there's more footprints underneath, right? So my mind just goes, well, are they mad at her because they're washing away, or they just don't want us to keep finding older ones?
Well, the first ones were 23,000 years old. So if they are further down, because that's fresh mud. That's what they say. They were created on fresh mud. which to me, I already had a discussion here at home about that, because I find very hard that fresh mud would create prints that last that long, especially because mud, you just put water on top of it, and then I can see the head,
I always
the
find
head
that
turning
weird.
on the other side of the room saying no, it doesn't agree with me. But to say that there are still prints beneath that one, that would show that I'm wrong, and that the process was cyclical, that each time that prints were made, they were preserved, and then new prints were put on top of it. So, yeah. Well, I don't know. It's still, as I said, it's a miracle that we find anything, especially when you go further back in time.
Well, and that's actually something I've thought about a lot. Like, it's like the conditions to create a fossil have to be so precise and perfect that whatever. If like a coyote dies in the woods or in a field,
we would be we would be swimming in bones. You would never
find even a bone of it. The scavengers would take it, the birds take it, the worms eat, everything eats it. Like, it has to get buried in the right conditions, in the right way, at the right time, and remain that way. So that's the thing. And even if it's buried, it's like half the time if you like bury like bodies, like they get eaten by the floor, like rigor mortis sets in, and all the little critters and the bugs eat and did this and this. So it's just like it's amazing we have fossils.
The conditions have to be precise.
They have to be precise and perfect. Yeah.
Well, Nikki, tells us, if you had any advice to someone that is trying to start a research or dig into any of these subjects, what would be your recommendations?
My recommendations is I like to tell people to go at things with the first principles, meaning like a lot of times come at every subject as if you're the first person to ever look at this first. Just kind of try to like not have it, try to let go of any preconceived notions or preconceived concepts of anything you had about this. Look at it like that first, and then build your questions from there. And that'll help you get further along than if you just look up what other people have said about something. Because then that gives you, like, for example, if you're coming across the footprints in white sands, instead of reading everything you can about them, first, like, just sit with the pictures and the imagery of it, and then see what comes to you first before you then look in what other people say about things, because you'll find that's where you get the questions that need to be answered.
It's a superpower. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. First principles, that's how you escape narrative blindness, as we've been saying. I couldn't endorse that more.
Sure. I think that the biggest obstacle on the independent researcher side is absolutism, and probably is the same sin that the other side, the academics, do, because you find lots of people that they found an answer and then they apply it to everything, and they explain everything from the answer that they got, right? And that takes them away from the truth instead of into the truth, because it's easy to arrange evidence for whatever proposition that one person can go. If you just go and look for creationism videos on YouTube or whatever you want, I have several of them on my Rumble, and you listen to their speeches for 1 hour, and you say, this guy knows what he's saying. Yeah, this really, he's using academic work and he's explaining things in a completely different way, and it makes sense. Because I'm not saying they're wrong, I'm just saying that everything can be made sense of if we know how to explain it.
Well, and that's kind of that's what you have to be careful with about the internet at large in general, right? Because there's a lot of really convincing personalities. Even I'm kind of convincing sometimes. So you have to really, like, use your own discernment and use your own, like, intuition to figure out what questions do you want answered, what questions do you want to know about something, and then reverse engineer it from that way. Because I think anytime, like, also your first impression of something, if somebody tells you, oh, the reason X this is like this is because of X, Y, or Z, that'll tend to be what you go back to all the time. So I don't know. And then as far as resources, it's like, I can't even tell you a person to go into or not, because, like, there's so many people that have started digging into this kind of ancient history stuff. But I will tell you that if you actually go looking for it, you will be amazed that you'll actually find mysteries, and that's the coolest thing ever. This is like the real TV. This is the real entertainment going on.
It really is. I mean, look, everywhere are questions. Of course, there's lots of people getting excited about it. Because we've been so long force-fed this bullshit narrative about something that has all the answers sorted out, right? And you can't help but get a taste of a real question and a real unknown before you're just sucked into it, out of gratefully. I knew we didn't fucking know everything. I mean, and then you're
well, if science delusion from Rupert Sheldrake was given to children as soon as they start to grasp their world, I think it would be an excellent base for them to then build up, because we realize that whatever they are learning is created on castles of sand. It's just suppositions. There's not one single thing that has been determined as a fact. It's just you find those facts because you are based in rules that you created yourself. So it's easy to be correct when you create the rules of the game. It's like scaffolding on top of what you're doing. The problem is sometimes you find things that take off your base legs, and then everything crumbles because you're creating assumptions on top of assumptions on top of assumptions.
Exactly.
And that's science for you today. And I'm not trying to discredit anyone. That's just facts, right? So, and by saying facts, I seems to be falling into the same sin that I'm trying to speak out here. But everything is relative, and I think that's what I'm taking from what you were saying, Nikki.
Yeah, I think so too. Don't believe what you don't. You don't have to believe what you think. Just think it and realize it could change.
Remember,
get rid of even your own narrative. That's the thing we're talking about here, folks. Is yeah, you're going to get rid of this narrative that's other people's shit they've given to you, but you've also got to get rid of your own. Just disengage and objectively take in what you've got. That's what I understand from you saying first principles. Is that's what I learned to do. And once you do that, all you get are questions, and you can land on some very real ones. I've got a few myself. I know you've got some. There's some all over the world that when you put it in front of anybody, right, that has experience in the area, they cannot give you a satisfactory explanation, right? Now, those are what we're here for, in my opinion.
Look, people have to realize that everything that is explained in science to this day begins with a miracle.
Yeah, give me one miracle and I'll give you all the others.
Yeah, just give me one miracle and I explain everything else, as Sarah Smith can say. So it all started with a miracle. So that's science for you today, for whatever it's worth. So
you've got an endocannabinoid system built into you, and it only responds to tetrahydrocannabinol, which is on a plant outside of you. No, that's just bullshit. That happened. That was just not real. Yeah.
Nikki,
science.
it was a tremendous pleasure having you on our podcast. Would you like to tell people where they can find you? I looked for your website, but it doesn't seem to be working. I'm not sure if it's
because I never really. I should pay for the thing to renew that website, but nobody ever goes there. Basically, the main place to find me is YouTube, Nikkiana Jones, and then if you just put Nikkiana Jones, you'll find me at this point. You could put Ricardo's name in behind it. You'll find our interviews. And then I also have a podcast, and then I have I'm on Twitter. As Twitter, I'm what is my sub handle?
Living Extraordinary
or Living Extraordinaire, one or whatever.
But
just put Nikkiana Jones, it'll come up. And then so I engage a lot on Twitter. Yes, that. Or I'm on Instagram, but I very randomly post. I mainly just look at little puppy dog pictures and stuff like that on there. Raccoons, I love raccoons. But anyway, yeah, I technically have an Instagram. YouTube's the best place. I have an email. If you really want to contact me about something, it's Nikki Anna Jones, all one word, no period or anything, at Proton Mail. So there you go. That's how you can get a hold of me and let me know.
Okay. Just to finish, any future projects that you can reveal to us?
Yeah, well, I'm going to continue the channel. I'm working on a book. Hopefully, I'm going to try to get it out this spring. And then, I might be actually hosting a conference this time next year.
Oh,
so that's in the beginning of getting worked out right now. So like if I get that going, that'd be super awesome. And I also might be doing a Japan tour, like taking people to Japan in the fall. So that's also something I'm like working out the details of right now. But all that stuff should be out by January on all my little things.
Okay.
So there you go. So that could be some good future projects.
Yeah, excellent. Look forward to it. And when you come your book, we will have you back just to tell us all about it.
Oh yeah,
sure.
I totally will.
Jason.
Yeah, and I love this podcast. It's like I like the way you guys are doing this, and I think the Institute of Natural Philosophy is going to be amazing when it's up and running.
Oh yeah, we'll do a big announcement soon. I say it's probably on the 15th. If everything goes well. The website is almost complete. Guy has done an excellent work, so we're hoping to be ready for everything that's coming.
Nikki, it has been an absolute pleasure. I would be remiss if I didn't get out of here without complimenting you on those absolutely gorgeous feather earrings, which I noticed 10 minutes into, also accentuated nicely with the turquoise ring. I've been distracted.
I got this is nothing. I got so much Native American jewelry. I love that stuff. Oh yeah. Cool.
Absolutely
Thank you so
beautiful. Listen, this has been just an absolute pleasure for me, honestly. I'm glad I held off on kind of getting to know you, so we've been able to just have a lot of fun. This introductory conversation has been excellent. And me being now made aware of your not only extensive experience, having traveled all over the world, but also your experience in academia and geology, I do hope one day I'll have the honor of you looking at some of my stuff with me and seeing if you can help me with a few of the questions I've come across.
Okay, cool. Likewise, yeah. And I mean, I'm going to have to look even more into your... I mean, I actually already follow a bunch of your stuff.
It's all over the place, you know. I mean, I'm one guy with a phone. I'm doing my best.
If a person looks at rocks differently, I'm in. Like, count me in.
Exactly.
Hey.
So I do, seriously, I've thoroughly enjoyed this, and thank you for the honor. And I do, with that entree, what I was getting at is I do look forward to future conversations and being able to take advantage of your knowledge, you know, and our shared knowledge. Because if nothing else, you know, we are doing a podcast. But I think what we're trying to sort of go for is just uniting, as Ricardo's always saying, all these various perspectives, right? Where we can all just kind of get together and go, thanks for your expertise, here's mine, thanks for that.
Right.
Let's go in the middle, and now what do we got? You know, and it's a beautiful thing. So thank you for being a part of it. And anyone out there who feels like any of the topics we touched on or any of the things you do speaks to you, independent researchers, communicators, artists, find us at the Institute of Natural Philosophy. We would love to talk to you. I found Ricardo, and now, you know, we're getting people like Nikki. I don't know when this is coming out, but, you know, the audience is getting a good grasp that we're just going all over the place looking for people that have passion, that have purpose, and that have something they're trying to make known to the whole. And we've been honored by this opportunity to get to know you, Nikki.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. So, as last promos, Jason?
No, I don't think so, Ricardo. This will come out. I just found out I'm going to the Quest for Ancient Civilizations conference this weekend. But so by the time this comes out, you'll have already seen reporting. I'm going to try to do a little Hunter Thompson style live reporting on X and just see if I can throw something together with those dudes that are going to be hanging around out there. Yeah, I just got offered a sofa, so I even get a bargain basement room at the fancy suites, right? So it just fell out of nowhere, and we're going to take full advantage of it and be very thankful to
Absolutely.
those that fall. You know, not out of nowhere. I'm just not going to. We will thank who it was after they named themselves.
Absolutely.
But yeah, anyway, we're still recording, and we can talk about that later. I don't have anything else. Check out Antediluvian Alabama. Find me on YouTube, Shaman 711. Look at these big rocks and these big metal deposits and tell me what the hell you see, because geologists aren't talking.
Sure.
Thanks, y'all.
So, just a reminder to go and check our sister podcast, Universe Unveiled. And I think it's a wrap for us. Thank you very much, Nikkiana, once more. And a very fond farewell to you all. Thank you.
Press the button. Thank you, sir.